This is Shiva for GosuGamers from the Dota 2 Asia Championships. I'm sitting here together with EG Charlie. Charlie, how are you doing?
I'm good.
How are you enjoying the tournament?
Oh, that is a complicated question. How am I enjoying the tournament?
Okay, let's segment it up, okay? Okay, so first, performance. How do you feel your team's doing? How do you feel like they're in shape, like mentally as well?
I'm actually... I don't want to say surprised, but just a little bit surprised and pleased with how well they're doing overall. They are a very new team. There were a lot of worries and concerns I had, and I guess the players had coming into it, how they would mesh together at their first big LAN. I don't really count D2L, and how their ideas would come together against some of the, I guess the Eastern teams and more premier competition.
Were you expecting to get them into the top 8?
Yes, I expected them to get into the top 4.
Okay, so in that regards, they did good for your expectations.
Their placement, yes, but I think the way they've played and just seeing them come together and the way they've scrimmed and developed over the last month has been good to see. There's lots of lessons to learn, but I think they've developed a very workable style and dynamic that has a lot of potential to be even better than they are now. They are still very young in terms of how long they've been together, and they still have things to work out. And I think this is a fair ground to put them to the test.
And in regards to the team dynamic, like outside of the game, of course, 2 new players is always finding their way. You have got Sumail on the team, who's a very young player. And in terms of the previous team, Arteezy was, of course, kind of the I don't know how you say that in English exactly, but it's like the wild buck, the person that you have to keep in check most of all. How is it now? Because maybe a little bit less work with Sumail, or?
It's more logistical work in the sense that because he's so young, there's a lot of things that he's not really sure of or experienced in knowing how to do, like take a plane, apply for a visa, so things like that, where when he had to apply for a visa, I flew out to Chicago to help him do it. And then when he took a plane for the first time by himself, I walked him through the steps, made sure there was somebody there. So in that sense, it's more work. Artur was a little more independent, but he is much milder than Artur is. As far as team dynamic goes, team dynamic is very fine. It's pretty good. These are all players that don't really have any like glaring personality issues. They're not super angry. They're not like, despite the salt memes, Peter is actually a pretty reasonable person, and the dynamic is fine. Like, Aoi has been around these guys for a long time. He used to play with Universe, and these guys have all known each other for a while. And I think Sumail, being as young as he is, respects his peers a lot because they've been in the scene for so long, they've achieved success for so long, and he realizes these are people that I can learn from and listen to. And so the dynamic is pretty healthy.
Do you feel like it's very different now that you don't have a player anymore in Europe? Because of course I used to be like you're a player. Is it different for you as a manager?
No, not really.
Nothing that you know, no, or maybe less complaints for server issues?
Zai never really complained about servers. Yeah.
Well, that's good to know at least. For this tournament, how do you feel like your team is treated? Obviously, you were flown over from the US to China. That's a gigantic travel that you have to make, your entire team. How do you feel like you're being treated over here?
Treated in terms of... Do you want to...
Okay, let's break it up. Treated in terms of people interaction.
Everybody has been really hardworking and accommodating. All the organizers they're very eager to please. This is for almost all of them, this is the first event that they put on. They are a little they are actually very inexperienced. There's a lot of things that have come up that they've had to sort of fix on the fly. But for all their inexperience, I will say that they have been very dedicated to improving what goes wrong or what needs to be fixed. And they, at least for me, have been very receptive to what I have to say.
Did you get a did you get a translator, for example? I mean, language barrier is of course there.
Yes. So we do have a dedicated translator. We shout out to Corey.
Does every team get one separately?
Yes, I believe there is a translator for every Western team. Corey is ours. Shout out to her. We've also Helena has also helped us out, who's the translator for Cloud9, and then I speak enough Chinese to get by.
And in terms of food, that also is no problem whatsoever. How are you treated at the hotel during the group stages, for example?
The food provided, not so great. Not gonna lie, it's not so great. But in terms of like food around the area, I've just been going out, grabbing food, bringing it back. It's fairly convenient, and there's and as if we need something delivered or we need help getting something or whatever, DAC has been the people working there have been pretty helpful and useful in helping us out with that.
Okay, and in regards to as a team at the group stages and then indeed playing the matches, how do you feel like it went for you, the group stages so far?
First 2 days really well. I would say groups went okay. I think we expected to do well. We probably wanted to do better than we did. In terms of performance, there were lots of lessons learned at the end, but I think the good part about it for us is that lessons were learned, and we're gonna grow a lot from those 4 losses. Like I said, young team, but there are a lot of things in those losses, I still see a lot of potential. In almost all of the games, in 3 of those games, we were ahead and just have some things to tweak out. And then as far as the placement goes, in terms of the group stage, we're actually okay with where we are. Simply because as long as you sort of place in the top 8, it really doesn't matter. Like top 4 is a little better because you get to choose, like you have the choice for side or pick. But in terms of like, there's no further advancement for top 2, and then 1 through 4, like you don't really get to choose who you want to play. It's just a straight, you play 6, 7, 8, or 5, 6, 7, 8 in that order. And I think out of the 4 teams we could have played, we're definitely okay with playing Navi. So in terms of placement, I think very, very okay with this.
And when you see your team losing, obviously it's difficult on you. Do you offer any kind of assistance, like in-game assistance? Do you take on a role of a sort of coach there, or do you just not try to stay away from that, to leave it all to the players?
It's been different for different teams that I've been involved in the past. On Dignitas and when I worked with Speed, I was definitely more involved in terms of like in-game communication, the relationship of the players with each other, and smoothing out relationships there, mostly because I think those players needed it a lot more. With this team, it's much less so. Like the players are developed enough to where they know how to interact with each other. They know how to sort of deal with losses or sort of talk to each other just on a human level, and so it's much less necessary. When things need to be prodded, I'll prod them a little bit, just in terms of speaking after a loss or just getting things moving. But for the most part, it's I've needed to be much less hands-on. If things get sort of out of control or heated, I'll step in, but it's hasn't been as necessary.
Okay, fair enough. And the group stage is a format of the tournament itself. The whole format, of course, best of ones, round one in the lower bracket, top 8 of group stages, moving to the winners bracket, and perhaps also the way the group stages were organized in terms of how often you played, how many games per day, etc.
I will say this, that the way these group stages were organized was pretty poor. I think Perfect World and DAC and Mars TV know this, and they know that they need to improve for the next round. The way this group stage was formatted is a little unideal. For example, bottom 4 elimination, okay with. The issue is mainly with how seeding is done 1 through 8. As everybody knows, all of those 8 teams go into the winners bracket, and the top 4 play the bottom 4, and there's little advantage. The advantage you're gaining from placing higher after the 8th seed is sort of minimal. For example, like there's no real advantage for top 2. Like there was for TI, where you were seated 1 round ahead.
Do you feel that should be happening?
Yes.
Like next year?
Yes, I think there should be a greater advantage for top 2. You do like the amount of wins needed to get top 2 and the level of performance you achieve during group stage required for top 2 is much higher and deserves a much bigger reward. It makes group stage more significant, whereas this is a little less significant. And the problem with the format was also that seeds 1 through 4, they don't get to really choose who they want to play from seeds 5 through 8. 1 plays 8, 2 plays 7, 3 plays 6, and 4 plays 5. That's not always... Sometimes the 8th seed isn't necessarily the weakest seed. I know, for example, I don't think Secret really... I don't think... Let's say Cloud9 was 8th place, and that could have been a possibility. I would say a lot of the Western teams don't necessarily want to play Cloud9. They would rather play one of the Chinese teams. And so that sort of seeding doesn't always make it advantageous for you to gain wins near the end. Sometimes it's more, it would have been advantageous depending on your matchup near the end to lose.
Would you, in this scenario, including the not 2 teams moving forward into the bracket, would you say, like, for example, Secret, you got number 1 in the group, you choose first from those 4 teams who you face? Right.
That would be the most ideal out of this format. Unfortunately, it wasn't like that. Some of these concerns were brought up, and I think they did take them into consideration, and they did think about this a lot, but ultimately it didn't go through. They did make certain adjustments in terms of seeds 1 through 4 get to choose their pick or side. That was something that was a development while the tournament was going on.
Okay, and how do you feel like you're treated in terms of preparation? Obviously, you say that they're sorting a lot of things out on the fly. Is that enough for you, or do you think, like, okay, you know what, this is their first tournament, we'll give them a bit of leeway, perhaps?
I mean, there's... what do you mean by, is this enough for me? I mean, obviously, at the end of the day, the ball's sort of in their court. All I can do is voice my concerns however aggressively I choose to do so, and it either gets done or it doesn't.
And they listen, obviously, I would assume. Like, do they have some, maybe after the tournament something like planned in terms of feedback, how they're going to improve next year? I mean, I'm going to assume that they plan to do this in a recurring theme kind of scenario here. Would you go again? Like, what would the major issues for you be to change next year?
I would say if this was done again next year, I would want a lot more information going forward. A lot of things were done very last minute. In terms of...
Example?
Visa letters. Very last minute. errors in the letters as well. You can ask Cyborg Matt about that. And then in regards to like preparation, how group stages were going to be formatted, schedules in advance, a rule set, things like that. It just needs to be fleshed out much further in advance. And I would expect, before we accept an invitation again, I would expect that these things would be provided. Obviously, I mean, a lot of people counter to that would say just don't go. But I mean, it's much more complicated than that. This is a almost $3 million tournament. You don't just not go because they didn't provide a rule set in advance. I mean, you sort of bank on the reputation of Perfect World and the size of the prize pool to ensure that things will get sorted out and that, I don't know, you don't get lost in Shanghai or something.
Did someone get lost in Shanghai?
No, no.
Okay, well, good. Of course, we're here at the main event, at the main venue. What do you think about the venue itself and the way things are handled here?
It is freezing in this venue.
Apart from where we're sitting right now?
Yes, yes. Apart from here and maybe a few choice rooms within the stadium, it is freezing.
I'm gonna assume that it's gonna still warm up when more people show up, when the area gets filled, maybe.
The stadium's fairly full. I don't know. Maybe for the finals it might get packed, but for the most part, there's a lot of people here.
Okay, so for future notice, perhaps either turn on these things earlier. We have some AC going on here, or perhaps different venue.
I have a feeling that most venues are going to be like this.
Okay. And apart from the temperature, everything is okay? Everything is fine with your team where they can watch the games and just relax? So we saw some boxes created for the players.
Yes, you may have answered your own question with those boxes. Yes, boxes.
What did the players think of those? Because I know my own opinion. I know some other opinions. What did the players find of those? Because actually, after I saw them the first time, and I thought, well, they're tiny, but they have 4 couches in them still.
Yes, there is a place to sit, and 4 walls, and a door, and a lock, and wish there was heating and a roof and maybe a little bit bigger, but we'll make do. We'll make do.
Okay, so let's just cut to the chase. I mean, this main event, apart from the temperature, what other changes would you like to see, or maybe even demand for a next year event?
I've often come across as, in the past, as pretty harsh on tournaments, especially Chinese tournaments. And I guess most of my gripes with them have been more regarding administration than comfort or how the venue is put up or whatever setup they have here. Mostly because I've never operated an event in China before. I've never operated a tournament before. Most people haven't, and most people have no idea what the complexities are that go behind putting an event like this, or whatever sort of troubles that may come up, or whatever. And so it's really difficult to say sort of what is feasible, what is in the realm of possibilities for them to feasibly improve, or what can reasonably be provided without being a diva or something like that. Mostly my gripes are usually just with administration and organization, things that I know can be controlled, but as far as putting on, like, renting out an event, what's set up here, that's very difficult to say. And so my motto is generally, if I know nothing, I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to criticize something that I have no experience in. Reddit.
Okay, fair enough. Back to Charlie. You're having a pretty awesome job at the moment. Is this your dream job?
Woo! I would say my dream job.
Or what is your, or rather, what is your dream job? Do you have a dream job? Not everybody has one.
I used to think that I did. I used to think that this was pretty close to it, but I find that like I've changed during so many stages of my life that what is ideal, what I like, or what I think is good is constantly changing. I'm obviously pretty happy with where I am now. I'm very grateful to EG, to Good Game for giving me the level of support and giving the team the level of support that they need. I mean, they make things pretty easy in terms of like what we need. Like at the beginning of this event, the chairs provided were not so great. So I mean, and being here gives me the freedom to sort of like I just went to IKEA in China and I bought 4 chairs, built them overnight, like pretty nice chairs. I don't have to worry about like the expense or something like that. And so like things like that, like it's always good to have that level of support. And so I'm very grateful for where I am now and happy. I don't know if I would be doing this. Actually, I know I won't be doing this forever.
What's your next step?
I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. I think lately what's been on my mind a lot are more sort of big picture things, like what happens with the scene as it goes forward, what happens with players and teams as they go forward. The scene is growing and it's changing very rapidly, and people's players and tournament organizers and viewers, their expectations are also changing very rapidly, and we need to grow with those expectations. We need to grow with the sort of influx of money and viewers within the scene, and it's something that's been on my mind a lot. Who knows what role I play with that in the future.
Okay, but definitely some food for thought there then.
Sure.
Okay, well, thank you for taking the time for this interview. Anything you would like to say? I mean, this is your time. Anything on your mind?
I'm usually I'm almost always really bad with open-ended questions like this at events, mostly because I don't really let myself think about too many open things like while I'm working at an event. It's very just what do I need to do next? What needs to happen next? And then that's sort of it. Maybe when I go back, I'll think of something, but usually really bad at these.
And any sponsor shout-outs if you want. I mean, I'm giving you the opening here. You know, you've already praised EG in this interview, so kind of a shout-out to them, I guess. Sure.
And then yes, shout out to all the sponsors that really support us. I know they do put in like a lot into making this possible, and I know they do give us a lot of support. HyperX has always been very helpful with providing boot camps. Monster, Matt, and Season are almost at every event that we attend. Very helpful. Razer sends us, like at last DreamHack, Artur specifically needed brown keys for his keyboard. Couldn't use anything else, and the Drew from Razer got like some of the last brown key Razer Tournament Edition Black Widows that he had, brought it to the event with us. So shout out to our sponsors, Tom from 100TB, CyberPower PC that provided us like ridiculous laptops for like when we travel. No, they're great. Okay, well, thank you very much, and good luck in the tournament, of course. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.